European leaders outraged this morning over President Trump's latest move in his bid for control of Greenland. Denmark's prime minister saying in response, quote, Europe won't be blackmailed. And there's a new twist this morning with the Norwegian prime minister's office releasing a text message President Trump sent yesterday tying his moves on Greenland to his Nobel Peace Prize snub.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. By this time next week, I'll be doing this show from Greenland. I'm headed there with a small group of people I trust whose names you'll probably recognize, with the goal of showing just how insane our president's policy of acquiring Greenland has been. If this were a script for an episode of Veep, no one would buy it. The president of the United States wants to own Greenland because he didn't get a prize he wanted and because it looks really big on maps. As far as U.S. national security is concerned, all the access we need is already being provided. We have military bases in Greenland. They've been there for decades. And Denmark, the NATO ally that controls Greenland, Danish soldiers bled and died alongside Americans in Iraq and Afghanistan. Imagine how their families feel, how their whole country feels when our president says they haven't done enough. If taking over Greenland is so critical to America's security, why is it not mentioned at all in the administration's most recent national security strategy, which was published last November? Which is why we know it's not about national security. It's about one man's fragile ego and his desperate need to distract Americans from his manifest failures as a president and as a person. Two of the people joining me on this trip to Greenland are Malcolm Nance and Dean Blundell. Malcolm is a career intelligence officer and one of America's leading experts on disinformation and great power competition. He brings decades of frontline experience from the Arctic to Ukraine as we prepare to head out. Dean is a Canadian political commentator who brings the perspective of one of America's most critical allies, especially when it comes to the Arctic. He's joining the trip to help us understand the stakes for Canada and NATO when the United States threatens to attack the very allies we're supposed to defend. Here's me, Malcolm Nance, and Dean Blundell. Malcolm, Dean, welcome to the show. Do you guys have your cold weather gear? You ready for this?
Yeah. Well, I'm borrowing mine from Malcolm.
Malcolm,
my Arctic gear is literally still packed from last year's trip. And I was planning to go caribou and muskox hunting this winter because it's better to hunt in winter. And now I'm hunting for democracy and saving people. I don't know what's going on here.
We just found the topper for the show. That is the mission. Dean, can you tell us what we're going there for? And I would love your perspective as our friendly neighbor to the north. Do our allies think we've just lost our freaking minds? What's the sentiment among Canadians and our NATO allies in Europe about this latest rant from the president?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think the purpose of the trip, Malcolm went foray last year, Mission Greenland. If anybody hasn't watched it, it's an incredible YouTube feature. Go to his YouTube to watch it. It's time to put our lives and our bodies where our mouths have been for the past year. In terms of the delegation and the people, I think we're representing pretty much every country that has something to lose with the rhetoric of this fascist president. Not just protecting Greenland, standing in front of Donald Trump and the United States for Greenland and the Danish people and their sovereignty. There's a real contingent of better America that's coming with yourself, with Malcolm, with the Save America movement, and Canada has a role to play. Not only is Canada where and how the United States resupplies, we have a job to do to be able to protect our allies. Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, said that the other day in no uncertain terms. We are standing right behind Denmark and Greenland. They get to decide their future. They get to decide their sovereignty. And, Malcolm and I, we've had several conversations. I've had conversations with people in Carney's orbit. Greenland, is it a beta test for what they want to do to Canada, what they want to do to Canadians? And so, this area of the world is a hot spot, and to lock arms with real patriots and better Americans like yourself, like Malcolm, like the folks at the Save America movement, like our friend Jacob Karsbo, Danish intelligence, former UN Security Council member, isn't just a privilege. It is our duty, as stated by NATO, as stated by our centuries-old relationship. So The purpose of this trip is to offer a line of sight for Danish and Greenlanders to be able to tell them that we are with you. All of us are with you. And to save America, that really has to start in Greenland. And I truly believe that, as does our advance team or away team or whatever you want to call it. I'm not a military guy. I'm just happy to be going with two of America's finest.
Well, Malcolm, you are a military guy. You've got a sense of the tactical picture. I know what Greenland looks like on a map, but can you give us a sense of what it looks like from the ground? This is a tough piece of real estate to defend. I mean, the challenge here is enormous, and it's going to have to be all about deterrence, unless I'm mistaken, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, when you look at Greenland on a map, what do you see? What color do you see?
White.
White, right?
White.
Right. That's Greenland. Okay. The terrain that you're looking at, almost 2,000 miles, is literally 80% of ice. And when I say ice, I mean a sheet of ice 1 mile deep. Okay. Ice from the Ice Age is visible in this place. This is why we have Station North up there pulling ice cores out to find the history of the climate in the history of the world in Station North. So when I explain that to people, they go, well, I can't quite grasp that. Now I want you to think about this. I want you to think about that sheet of ice. And way down in the southwest corner is a strip of fjords. Every inch of that island is surrounded by fjords like in Norway, only they're not developed. They are insane to get through. And there are tiny, tiny, tiny little settlements going up and down those places. This time of year, most of those settlements are frozen in. There is no ferry traffic to them, which is their principal way of getting around the country. And you have to either fly in or you're there, because there are no roads in the country other than within the settlements themselves. Excuse me. So that every inch of that coast is those fjords with mountains along them, and they're all covered with thousands and thousands of tons of ice. I mean, it's just incredible. The only time you can really get there and appreciate the beauty that's under some of that ice is from June to September. That's when it gets a little warmer. It gets green. That's where Eric the Red did his settlement in the south down near Kotortok and Narsarsuaq. And it's great. But the rest of the country is still 80% ice. Where our base is in Patufic, way up in the northeast, right, near a tiny village called Kanak, and there is a village called Patufic. That place is 982.5 miles from the capital of Nuuk. So it's really far away. And did I mention it's over a 1 mile deep sheet of ice with no runways in between A and B? So it is a brutal environment, which, whatever they're after in terms of minerals, it's almost inaccessible. The entire country totals 57,000 people. 17,000 are in the capital of Nuuk. It's not even a city. It's a town you can look across from end to end. And they have a wonderful existence. And now they are upset that America, a country that used to defend democracy, is now their greatest threat to their existence.
For nothing. Dean, can you talk about what the Danes and what NATO already offers the United States in terms of polar security, in terms of bases? I mean, what the president is asking for, if it's to be believed, is already being provided. We have this alliance. We have this access. We have the bases that Malcolm referred to. Everything's already available. Why are we doing this?
Literally, ego. That's why you're doing this. This has got nothing to do. It's about ego. It's about the oligarchy. It's about, pardon my language, big dicking everybody in the NATO alliance. It's for Trump to, somehow try to prove to everybody that he can do the impossible. He's the king of deal making, but it's bigger than that. There are so many different interests, and none of them are domestic, that are demanding that Donald Trump follow through with his takeover and invasion of Greenland. Now, why? A lot of people ask, and there are several reasons why. Natural resources, absolutely. I think there's 26 million tons of zirconia. There are massive lithium deposits. There are natural gas deposits. There are, just a horde of cooling and data ability to be able to cool data centers just because of the size and the water and where it is and the geography. And that speaks to the Freedom City Broligarch dream and the Praxis community, which we'll get into when we get there, of literally Donald Trump delivering this island to, a matter of 7 or 8 different broligarchs to have freedom cities where they're allowed to live this futuristic lifestyle, and nobody gets to tell them what to do or how to do it. There's that aspect to it. But really, what this comes down to for Donald Trump is this multipolar push. The reason that he's supporting Vladimir Putin in Ukraine by abating his responsibility to NATO and to the free people of Ukraine is Greenland, is shipping lanes. Same thing with Xi in China. With climate change and with what we know climate change to be, and we know the Arctic Passage being what it is, there are very few countries that have a toehold into the Arctic, that have claims into the Arctic. Canada, one of the biggest. China says they want a claim to the Arctic. They don't have one. And so when we talk about the rugging or the perception that Donald Trump wants all of us to have, is that there's Russian ships and Chinese ships running around Greenland. Malcolm can attest. Not only is that not fucking true, there's one oligarch boat that takes, he calls them ski Nazis, skiing all winter and summer. But that's it. Nothing that Donald Trump, all the rhetoric that he comes up with is a lie. And if you believe any of it, I've got a letter to the Prime Minister of Norway that he put out this morning that said, hey, bud, listen, you didn't give me the Nobel Peace Prize, so I'm no longer interested in peace. And that's why I'm going to invade Greenland. So, dealer's choice as to, what fucked up excuse he wants to give his allies, NATO, long-standing centuries, generations-long partnerships with different countries, and different defense alliances. But Donald Trump is literally trying to break NATO in half. That is his goal.
It's Ken Harbaugh with a quick break to tell you about something new. Battle Buddies is my latest weekly show where I try to find common ground with a conservative who I consider a true friend. David Bellavia, the only surviving Medal of Honor recipient from the war in Iraq. A Navy vet, an Army vet from opposite ends of the political spectrum, engaging in a civil conversation like we used to have. From the ICE immigration crackdowns to Trump's takeover of Venezuela, David and I take on the toughest issues of the day with genuine respect for each other, in spite of our very different perspectives. They're not always easy conversations, but they're always important, and that's something we need more of. Respectful dialogue between people who disagree, but who have figured out how to stay friends. Check out Battle Buddies today. 2 vets, 2 views, 1 nation. Find us on the Valor Media Network. The link's below. Thanks. Trump seems to be acting more like Putin every day, and I think it's tied to how much weaker and how much more insecure he's become in his presidency. But Malcolm, you know this better than anybody. When dealing with an insecure, bullying autocrat, if you stand up to them, they tend to back down. And it's a weird thing to be saying as someone who wore the nation's cloth, but I feel like we're at the point now where we need to encourage our allies to stand up to our own country. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, absolutely. When I was in Greenland last year and when I was in Denmark, I was on Denmark television and I was telling them, listen, the only way that you're going to get this to be defused is you're going to have to put forces in Greenland. Call their bluff. They say that there's no security in Greenland. Provide some security to Greenland. That has apparently not worked. They did put troops and fighter jets in Greenland last year. And Trump has now got it into his head. He must own that territory. By the way, with regards to mining, It's nearly impossible to mine there. The Canadians recently got a concession, but it is deep under ice. And it is hard. If it was easy to get to, people would have been mining there for the last 80 years with U.S. presence and other countries' presence. Very hard. There's one gold mine, I believe, down in the south and some lithium that they're looking for. Yes, there are deposits, but you can't get to it, right? So that being said, Trump's mindset is about the acquisition of terrain. He wants the land. And he's using this ridiculous excuse of Chinese and Russian ships. There are no Chinese and Russian ships around Greenland. Canada controls the Northwest Passage. Canada, you got to go through Canadian waters. And I recently saw a great show about, the Canadians have about how they deliver food to the North, the Great North. And there was one episode where 3 Canadian Coast Guard icebreakers got frozen in with the ship they went to rescue. That place is not a viable passage, as opposed to the Panama Canal or even, the southern route. And another question is, he wants these navigation channels to go where? To China? To Vladivostok? I mean, he wants to increase trade it's not Korea and Japan that he wants the Northwest Passage from, because to go through, when you go through the Dawes Strait, it's very, very narrow. We have a 2.5 mile wide border with Russia off of Alaska. So what is he talking about? He doesn't want to be neighbors with Russia. Also, there ain't no Russian Navy. The old days when we would have to monitor the Greenland, Iceland, UK gap doesn't exist. That Navy can barely get out of port to patrol its own waters. So whatever he's talking about is a fantasy in his head, because intelligence doesn't support it whatsoever. He just wants that land. And to be quite honest, I gave this assessment when I was speaking to the the Times Globe and Mail last year. If he gets Greenland, he's boxed Canada in. And, he has those aspirations of breaking Canada. This is all madness. It's tech bro, Silicon Valley, let's take this land, hipster stuff. Him and his belief that he would be the president that would be the greatest expansionist president since the Louisiana Purchase. It's mind-boggling and it's crazy.
Well, just because it's crazy doesn't mean it's not happening.
It's happening.
The alarm bells are going off. We're going to see it for ourselves in a couple of days. Yeah. Gentlemen, dress warm. I'll see you in New Greenland.
Thanks, right, boys.
Take care.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.